What if your next grocery trip felt like walking into a ghost town? Shelves half empty, eggs gone, flour nowhere to be found, coffee completely vanished. Sound extreme? It's not. It's already happening in parts of the country, and prices are skyrocketing faster than anyone expected. Here's the deal: food shortages aren't just a what if anymore. They're here, and if you're not paying attention, you're going to get caught off guard. In the next few minutes, I'm breaking down 9 critical grocery items you need to stock up on right now before the shortages hit your area. Trust me, number 6 will leave you stunned. I've spent hours combing through USDA reports, tracking real-time price spikes, and digging into unfiltered posts from Reddit, Facebook, and Twitter. What I found: alarming. Egg prices have doubled in some states, beef is hitting record highs, and pantry staples are quietly disappearing from shelves before most people even notice. This isn't just about the obvious stuff. I'm talking about surprising essentials that could make or break your pantry when supply chains collapse. Stick with me until the end, because by the time this video's over, you'll have a no-nonsense shopping list to protect your family and your wallet. And while you're here, drop a comment. Have you seen empty shelves, price hikes, or limits where you shop? Your story could help someone else prepare. Let's get into it. 1. Fresh eggs, the silent gold rush of 2025. If you think eggs will always be sitting pretty on your grocery shelf, think again. Right now, eggs are becoming the new panic item in US stores, and it's not hype. Millions of laying hens have been wiped out thanks to a nasty wave of bird flu, and that's gutted the supply almost overnight. The result? A massive price surge that's got people doing double takes at checkout. In some months, prices have almost doubled compared to last year, and we've already seen record highs in early 2025. Even diners and breakfast chains like Waffle House have been forced to slap surcharges on egg-based meals because they simply can't absorb the cost anymore. Social media is full of photos of empty shelves and absurd price tags. Big supermarket chains have even started limiting how many cartons one customer can buy. And yes, that's happening in America, not just in some disaster movie. Sure, the government and egg industry are scrambling, importing more, throwing relief money around, and pushing for stricter biosecurity on farms. Wholesale prices have dipped from the absolute peak, but the reality is this: repopulating flocks takes months, and you can't just wave a magic wand to sanitize a farm after a deadly flu outbreak. Translation: prices and supply will remain volatile for the foreseeable future. If eggs are part of your daily routine, whether for breakfast, baking, or even that fancy coffee recipe, stock up smart. Get them when you see them, freeze extra if you can, and don't assume they'll be cheap again anytime soon. Waiting until your local store is rationing cartons is how you end up paying double or going without. 2. Shelf-stable proteins, the real survival food. Let's cut the fluff. When meat prices spike or fresh meat just isn't available, canned meats and jerky are the lifesavers that keep you fed. The U.S. meat snack market was worth over $4 billion in 2024, and it's still growing, which tells you something. People are realizing the value of high-protein, long-lasting food. When things get tight, jerky becomes a go-to because it's light, tasty enough, and doesn't spoil. Canned meats like Spam, shredded chicken, tuna, and beef stew are basically designed for crisis moments. They store easily, don't need refrigeration, and if kept in a cool place, can last 2 to 5 years without losing quality. That kind of shelf life is a huge deal when store trips become risky, supply chains break down, or prices jump overnight. We're already seeing warning signs. Food pantries that serve vulnerable communities are reporting shortages in canned meats, which is exactly the kind of early signal you want to pay attention to. The global appetite for jerky is exploding too, which means competition for those packets will only get worse. From a prepper's perspective, a smart stash includes variety: some plain meat for cooking flexibility, some stews for ready-to-eat meals, and jerky for quick calories when you can't cook. These foods aren't about fine dining. They're about fuel, protein, and morale when fresh food is gone. And here's the truth: people who laugh at canned Spam today will be the ones kicking themselves later when fresh meat prices double and shelves run dry. Stock it now, rotate your stash, oldest cans first, and you'll never have to wonder where your next protein hit is coming from. 3. Coffee and everyday drinks, the price climb you can't ignore. Coffee drinkers, brace yourselves, your morning ritual is getting expensive. Between May 2024 and May 2025, roasted and instant coffee prices jumped about 12%, and the overall non-alcoholic beverage index climbed 4%. That's not just some boring statistic. That's your $5 bag of coffee creeping toward $9, and in some premium cases $15 to $20. The reasons aren't going away anytime soon. Global coffee bean prices have spiked because bad weather slammed top producers like Brazil, and tariffs on imports have only made things worse. Green coffee, the raw beans, has nearly doubled in cost in recent years and hit all-time highs in early 2025. Add shipping delays and roasters paying inflated wholesale prices, and you've got a recipe for ongoing pain in the coffee aisle. Government data shows ground coffee prices in January 2025 were 75% higher than just 5 years ago. People are noticing. Some are already hoarding bags of beans to lock in today's price before the next jump. Demand isn't falling, either. Americans will cut corners in a lot of places, but not in their caffeine habit. If you want to beat the hikes, you need to think storage. Whole beans keep longer than pre-ground. Instant coffee has the best shelf life of all. And while you're at it, don't ignore other non-alcoholic drinks. Bottled tea, powdered drink mixes, even electrolyte packets can become surprisingly valuable when fresh options aren't available. Short-term, you'll see sticker shock at cafes and grocery stores. Long-term, climate instability and trade restrictions mean elevated prices are here to stay. The smart move: buy extra now, stash it somewhere cool and dry, and thank yourself later when your daily cup doesn't feel like a luxury splurge. 4. Beef, the luxury meat that's about to get pricier. If you think beef is always going to be sitting in that grocery cooler, think again. The U.S. cattle herd is at some of the lowest levels we've seen in decades. Depending on who you ask, somewhere between 86.7 and 94.2 million head. That's not just a random number. It's the foundation of every steak, burger, and roast you've ever bought. When the herd shrinks, your wallet bleeds. Ground beef is already hovering around $6 a pound in many places, and certain premium cuts are breaking into double-digit territory. This isn't a seasonal price bump. This is the result of years of drought, high feed costs, and ranchers selling off cattle just to stay afloat. And here's the kicker. Rebuilding herds takes years. A calf born today won't hit market weight for about 2 years. So even if every rancher started restocking tomorrow, you'd still be staring down tight supply until late 2026 or beyond. Meatpacking giants are feeling the pinch too. Companies like Tyson have reported losses in their beef divisions because they're paying top dollar for cattle, while processing capacity can't magically expand overnight. Imports help a little, but tariffs, disease scares, and trade restrictions mean foreign beef won't save you from high prices. Demand? Still strong. Americans aren't ditching their burgers anytime soon, which keeps pressure on prices. That's why if beef is a regular part of your diet, you need to be thinking freezer first. Stock up on ground beef when you see a decent price, vacuum seal steaks, or grab shelf-stable canned beef for long-term insurance. Treat beef like gold, because price-wise, that's where it's headed. 5. Rice and grains, the calorie kings you can't afford to ignore. Forget the fancy stuff. Rice, oats, pasta, and other grains are the backbone of a serious food stash. They're cheap per calorie, they keep forever if stored right, and they'll keep you full when meat, veggies, or fresh bread aren't an option. That's why every prepper worth their salt has a corner of their pantry loaded with sacks of carbs. The numbers tell you why. U.S. rough rice stocks as of June 1, 2025 were about 69.7 million hundredweight, 15% higher than last year. Sounds good, right? But look closer. Global rice consumption is up. World stocks are smaller, and production forecasts are wobbling. Corn tells a similar story. Total U.S. corn stocks are down 7% year over year. That's not catastrophic yet, but it's enough to make supply chains twitchy. When food prices rise, and they have, with food at home up 2.4% in the last 12 months, people fall back on staples. That's when demand for rice, pasta, oats, and flour spikes, sometimes overnight. Add a weather event or trade hiccup, and you've got yourself empty shelves. Practical move: stock a mix. Long grain rice for everyday cooking, quick cook rice for emergencies, rolled oats for breakfasts or baking, durable flours for bread, pizza, and more. And don't just buy it and forget it. Rotate your stock. Eat from it, replace it, keep it fresh. It's not dramatic, it's just math. A few sacks of rice and some boxes of pasta can buy you weeks of food security if something disrupts the supply chain. Ignore carbs at your own risk. They're cheap insurance when the rest of your grocery bill is on fire. 6. Sugar and sweets, the mood lifters. You'll miss when they're gone. People roll their eyes when you talk about sugar during a food shortage, until they realize how much they miss it. Sugar, chocolate, candy bars, they're not just treats, they're morale boosters. And right now, they're getting pricier. The USDA says sugar and sweets prices in June 2025 were about 5% higher than the same time last year, with another 5% increase forecast for the rest of the year. That adds up fast when you're baking, making coffee, or just trying to bribe your kids into behaving. Why the price hike? Weather hit beet and cane sugar production. Global sugar and cocoa prices have climbed. U.S. import restrictions keep domestic prices above the world average. Throw in transportation and packaging costs, and suddenly your bag of sugar or box of cookies is costing you a noticeable chunk more. Here's the kicker. People don't actually stop buying sweets when times are tough. They might trade down to cheaper brands, but demand stays strong. That means even during a shortage, your favorite candy bar might still exist, just at a price that makes you think twice, or in smaller supply when holidays like Halloween or Christmas roll around. If you like baking, sweetening your coffee, or just having a sugar hit now and then, stash some now. White sugar lasts indefinitely if kept dry. Cocoa powder, hard candies, and even chocolate bars can be rotated easily. These aren't just luxury items. They're small morale boosts that can make tough times feel a little more normal. Bottom line, during a shortage, sugar and sweets will be one of the first comfort categories to spike in price or vanish entirely. Stocking a bit extra now is cheap insurance for your taste buds and your sanity. 7. Grab-and-go snacks, small packages, big lifesavers. Call them what you want. Granola bars, protein bars, crackers, single-serve snack packs, they're the unsung heroes of a pantry. Most people don't think twice about them until the day they're staring at an empty fridge or can't cook. Snacks aren't just filler, they're instant calories, quick morale boosts, and ready-to-eat comfort when life goes sideways. Here's the reality. Over 90% of people worldwide snack between meals daily, and the US is no exception. The US snack bar market alone was worth nearly $9 billion in 2024, and it's still climbing. That's great, until ingredient prices rise, factories slow production, or companies quietly discontinue your favorites. One spike in oat or sugar prices and that protein bar you love might disappear overnight. Grocery prices in mid-2025 are still running higher than last year, about 3% overall, with sugars and sweets up over 5%. That means the cost of snack ingredients is climbing right along with your grocery bill. And when shortages hit, snack aisles are among the first to get picked clean. From a prepper's perspective, these little items are gold. They don't need refrigeration, they last months or longer, and they pack serious calorie density. A single protein bar can keep you going for hours. Crackers pair perfectly with peanut butter for protein and fat. Jerky or high-protein bars add staying power for busy days or emergencies. Here's the blunt advice. Buy more now, rotate them out before they expire, and keep a mix of savory and sweet. Kid-friendly snacks matter too. Keeping kids calm during stressful times is no small thing. The day your favorite snack vanishes from shelves, you'll wish you'd thrown a few extra boxes in the cart. 8 frozen fruits and veggies, the backup produce you'll be glad you have. Fresh produce is unpredictable right now, and frozen is picking up the slack. US per capita fresh vegetable availability dropped to the lowest level in more than 35 years, thanks to weird weather patterns, transport delays, and shrinking harvests. Fresh market vegetable production alone fell about 4% in 2024, and no, that's not just a seasonal thing. This is why frozen fruit and vegetable sales are climbing year after year. Frozen produce lasts months, doesn't require you to eat it in 3 days, and often costs less than fresh during shortages. And here's a fact most people forget. Frozen produce is often harvested and frozen at peak ripeness, locking in nutrients that fresh produce can lose after long shipping times. You're not downgrading, you're choosing stability. Take blueberries as an example. Weather damage in major growing regions caused global shipment drops in the low double digits for 2025. That forced retailers to lean on frozen stock to meet demand. If you like smoothies, baking, or even fruit for breakfast, frozen often becomes the only reliable option when fresh disappears. Frozen vegetables work the same way. A single bag of mixed veggies can stretch into multiple meals from side dishes to soups. They're also more budget-friendly because price spikes in fresh produce don't always hit frozen as hard. Bulk processing stabilizes costs. Storage is easy. Even a small freezer drawer can hold weeks' worth of frozen produce if you plan smart. And unlike fresh, you're not racing against spoilage. When lettuce prices skyrocket or tomatoes look half dead, frozen spinach or peppers keep your meals balanced and colorful. Bottom line, frozen produce isn't a backup. It's a strategy. 9 cooking oils and pantry basics. The stuff you won't notice missing until it's gone. Cooking oils, butter, flour, they're the backbone of nearly every meal you make, and they're exactly the kind of items people forget to stock until the shelves are bare. Here's why that's dangerous. These basic items are globally traded commodities, which means when one big producer hiccups, the ripple hits your grocery store fast. We saw it with palm oil in 2022, when Indonesia restricted exports. Prices spiked within weeks. That pushed up the cost of soybean, sunflower, and even olive oil, because buyers scrambled for substitutes. The same pattern can happen again, especially with biodiesel mandates, aging palm trees, and slow replanting, threatening future supply. Butter has been on its own wild ride. Tight dairy production and rising export interest have pushed US butter prices higher, with Europe's market pressures adding fuel to the fire. Stores sometimes quietly limit butter purchases when supply dips, and by the time you notice, you're already paying more for less. Flour might seem untouchable, but global wheat harvests can be wrecked by weather, shipping disruptions, or trade restrictions. When that happens, flour prices rise, and baking costs follow. It's not dramatic, it's supply and demand, and it moves fast. The fix? Diversify and store smart. Keep a mix of shelf-stable oils, canola, sunflower, olive, butter in the freezer, and extra flour in airtight containers. Oils store for months, butter freezes beautifully, and flour will last if kept dry and cool. These aren't glamorous prep items, but when they're missing, you can't cook most meals. Ignore them now, and you'll pay more later if you can even find them. Stock the basics before they become another out-of-stock sign at your store. 10. Spices, seasonings, and condiments. The morale boosters you don't think about. When shelves get thin, people panic over rice and pasta, but nobody talks about the silent heroes of the kitchen: spices, sauces, and condiments. Without them, your food becomes a flavorless punishment. Salt, pepper, cumin, chili powder, ketchup, mustard, soy sauce. These aren't just extras. They're the difference between a bland survival meal and something you actually want to eat. In high-stress times, morale matters, and food that tastes good keeps people calmer and more willing to eat what's available. Here's the kicker. Spices and sauces are vulnerable to supply chain shocks. Black pepper comes mostly from Vietnam and India. If either has a bad harvest or export restrictions, prices can spike overnight. Tomato-based condiments depend on harvests in just a few key regions, and if you've seen recent tomato price volatility, you know how fast ketchup can double in price. Salt is cheap, but flavored salts, seasoning blends, and gourmet spices, not so much, and they can vanish during global shipping delays. During COVID lockdowns, some shelves stayed bare for months because spice shipments from India and Southeast Asia were stuck at ports. Stock smart. Buy bulk basics like salt, pepper, garlic powder, and chili powder. Add morale boosters like hot sauce, vinegar, or even barbecue sauce. These have long shelf lives, don't need refrigeration until opened, and make even the most boring pantry meal taste like something worth eating. When the day comes that you're staring at plain boiled rice, you'll thank yourself for having a jar of curry powder. 11 canned soups, stews, and ready-to-eat meals. Heat, eat, survive. If there's one category that screams instant relief, it's canned meals. Soups, stews, chili, canned pasta. They're not glamorous, but they're the perfect mix of calories, hydration, and minimal effort. In any emergency where cooking isn't an option, they're your best friend. The market for canned soups and meals has been climbing, and here's why. They require zero refrigeration, heat up in minutes, and often taste decent straight from the can if you have to. For people without power, that's not just convenience, that's survival. The risk? Canned goods aren't immune to shortages. Aluminum prices affect can production, and major weather events or transportation strikes can delay shipments. Even big brands sometimes quietly reduce variety when raw material costs spike. That means your go-to chicken noodle or beef stew might suddenly disappear for months. Prices have also been creeping up, partly from metal costs, partly from labor and transport. A few cents here and there doesn't sound like much until you realize you're paying 25 to 30% more for the same can compared to just 3 years ago. Strategy is simple. Store a variety. Go for soups with protein, beef, chicken, lentils, and calorie-heavy options, chili, creamy chowders. Rotate them out every 12 to 18 months. Don't forget quick-fix sides like canned beans or pasta and sauce. They'll turn basic rice into a full meal without extra fuel or prep. You'll be glad you stocked them when you can't cook from scratch. 12 pasta, rice, and shelf-stable carbs. The cheapest calorie insurance you can buy. There's a reason every prepper's pantry has bags of rice and boxes of pasta. They're dirt cheap, calorie-dense, and last for years if stored properly. In any crisis, carbs become the foundation of your diet because they stretch everything else. Here's the hard truth. While prices are still relatively low compared to fresh foods, the long-term trend is up. Droughts in rice-producing countries like India and Thailand can send global rice prices soaring. Pasta depends on durum wheat, which has seen yield issues from heat waves in Canada and Europe. When production dips, your grocery bill feels it fast. Shelf-stable carbs aren't just about price. They're about control. A single 5-pound bag of rice can feed a family for multiple meals. A box of pasta can turn a small amount of meat or vegetables into a hearty dinner. And if fresh produce is scarce, carbs pair perfectly with frozen or canned vegetables to keep meals balanced. The key is storage. Keep rice in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers for multi-year shelf life. Pasta should be stored in a cool, dry place away from pests. Don't forget variety: white rice, brown rice, spaghetti, macaroni, couscous, so you don't burn out on one texture or flavor. When shelves go bare, carbs vanish fast because everyone grabs them first. Stock them now while they're cheap. rotate them regularly, and you'll always have the backbone of a filling meal, no matter what's happening outside. 13. Cooking oils and fats, the hidden calorie lifeline. Most people don't think about cooking oil until the bottle runs dry, and then they realize just how much of their meals depend on it. Oils and fats aren't just for frying, they're essential for cooking, flavor, and calories. In a survival situation, fat is a concentrated energy source that keeps you going when carbs alone won't cut it. The problem: cooking oil prices are volatile and supply chains are fragile. We saw it in 2022 when palm oil and sunflower oil shortages hit hard due to war and export bans. Prices doubled in some countries within weeks. Oils go rancid over time, especially once opened, so stockpiling requires a plan. You want to mix long-life staples like refined sunflower, canola, or soybean oil, high-heat options like peanut or avocado oil for frying, flavor boosters like olive oil or ghee for morale and taste. Ghee and coconut oil have longer shelf lives and can handle room temperature storage better. Even butter, if stored in the freezer, can last a year or more. The trick is rotation. Keep what you'll actually use, store it in a cool, dark place, and replace it before the best-by date. In a crisis, a splash of oil can turn plain rice and beans into something filling and satisfying, and in a cold climate, that extra fat literally keeps you warmer. 14. Long-life dairy and dairy alternatives, nutrition when fresh milk disappears. When the trucks stop, fresh milk is one of the first things to vanish from store shelves, and it spoils within days. That's where long-life dairy comes in. Powdered milk, evaporated milk, shelf-stable UHT cartons, they're all survival gold because they give you protein, fat, and calcium without refrigeration. Powdered milk has been a prepper favorite for decades because it stores for years in a sealed container. You can drink it, cook with it, or use it in baking. Evaporated milk is richer and perfect for sauces, coffee, or desserts. Shelf-stable plant milks, soy, almond, oat, have exploded in popularity and often last 9-12 months unopened. Plus, they work for people who are lactose intolerant. But here's the catch: dairy production is sensitive to fuel costs, feed prices, and weather. Droughts reduce cattle feed supply, which pushes milk prices up. Even plant-based milks depend on specific crop yields. Almonds from California, oats from Canada and Europe, so they're not bulletproof. Stocking tip: keep a mix of powdered milk for bulk use, UHT cartons for convenience, and maybe a flavored shelf-stable creamer for morale. If you drink coffee daily, this could be the one thing that keeps you sane when the fresh milk is gone. 15. Baking essentials, the power to create food from scratch. In any crisis where packaged goods run low, the ability to bake your own bread, biscuits, or pancakes is priceless. That means having the building blocks: flour, sugar, baking powder, baking soda, yeast, and salt. With those, you can make not just bread but pasta, tortillas, and even emergency desserts. Flour prices can spike fast when wheat yields drop, as we've seen with heat waves in Europe and Canada. Sugar depends heavily on harvests from Brazil and India, both vulnerable to monsoons and drought. Yeast shortages even happened during COVID because suddenly everyone was baking at home. The beauty of baking essentials is flexibility. Flour plus water plus heat, food. Add oil, sugar, or spices and you get variety. If you're stuck indoors for weeks, the smell of fresh bread can keep morale high when everything else feels grim. Storage matters. Whole wheat flour has a shorter shelf life than white flour because of its natural oils. Store in airtight containers, ideally with oxygen absorbers. Yeast can last a year in the fridge and even longer in the freezer. If you want to go next level, keep shelf-stable extras like powdered eggs or milk. They open up even more baking options without needing fresh perishables. In a long-term emergency, your ability to turn basic ingredients into filling meals could mean the difference between rationing and eating well.